Good evening to everyone. Welcome to the lecture for today. Today we have Pedro Campos Costa, who will introduce his thoughts and his work, and we look forward to this. And Michele Rota will present with few words our guest. So I give the floor to Michele Rota. Thank you.
Good evening also from my side, from our physical site and location. This is our office in Piacenza. Next year we will meet here somewhere, not in virtual class. Anyway, this is the third lecture of our series, during which we will know deeply and better our guest professor and visiting professor of this edition of Landscape of Limits workshop. So in the last date of the series, we will meet Pedro Campos Costa from Lisbon. He's the leader, as you know, of Atelier number 3. And we have met his own approach and his own ideas of architecture also during last week midterm discussion. So I will be very brief presenting him, and I want to thank also Ilaria because she spoiled me some information about Pedro's background and project in Lisbon. And normally when we introduce a lecture, we all architects like to talk about multidisciplinarity, multiscalarity, and so on. I think that today, these two words are very topical because what Pedro is doing is something in his experience, professional activity and experience is very, very multidisciplinary and multiscalar. There is a side of his activity related with architecture for sure. I have flipped through some of his projects. I guess that just 10 years ago, he opened a path with the refurbishment and enlargement of the Oceanarium in Lisbon. That sounds like a very topical and important project still today, working on some points. If you think, well, Pedro is from Lisbon and he studied in Porto, but if you expect something typical of the Portuguese architecture, maybe you are in the wrong panel, you are in the wrong class. So his language sounds like more complex and more something different from the white surfaces and the very clear geometries. I like to point out one point before giving the floor to Pedro is about communication. Because what this is doing also in our workshop is strongly related with communication. A few years ago, he was the curator of the Portuguese pavilion in the Biennale di Venezia. It was 2014, I guess. And his approach was not an architecture, not a model, nothing related with architectural shape. Was a series of journals, magazines, newspapers. The title was Homeland, isn't it? And it is a way of communicating or discussing of architecture that maybe during these years developing into something different. He has already talked out about his radio and broadcasting program. So I think when we talk about Pedro's activity, maybe project is not enough. We need to talk about project and program. That is not just about a radio or TV program. It's something more different. It's about a series of also performance and activity within the studio. We have seen last Tuesday, we have seen his ping pong table, but I think there are some other elements behind it. And the last point is always about communication. Communication is not just text, it's not just the newspaper, it's not just magazine. I have seen quite recent research about verticality in Lisbon. That sounds like a very topic in his research. And it was transmitted through a series of very colored and colorful panels describing utopistic vision and so on. The point to me is to understand that his path, his approach to architecture is really made of different components and tools. And I think that the workshop, as the workshop we are doing together, is a moment to test integration of it. And now I guess in the next half an hour, 40 minutes, Pedro is giving us a prompt of his activity. So I'm giving you the floor. We want to thank you very much for your participation in the workshop and for also for your availability to discuss with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Michele. Fantastic presentation and really nice. And I want just to make a small comment on your presentation that is, of course, if you think that Portuguese architecture is white, about white and form, if it's a formalistical thing, of course, I'm not a Portuguese architect. I don't know even what is actually a national architecture. Italian architecture, American architecture, Portugal. We can speak about it. It's not the thematic of this lecture, but it could be very nice to do it. I did it when I gave classes in Politecnico. I gave one lecture just about Portuguese, what I consider be the Portuguese architecture. But it's a very interesting subject. So anyway, I'm going to share my my screen to show a presentation about all these things that Michele spoke. And it's true what he said, that is I'm very much worried with different subjects. So I actually start exactly with that. So actually I can tell the story of these 2 pages. 5 years, it was not so much time ago, it was like 5 years ago. João Nunes invited me to a conference, a lecture, and he asked me 5 minutes before, what is not so so nice. He said, you have to tell me in one slide or in one image what is for you important in architecture. And I was completely stressed because I only had 5 minutes. I opened my book and I did this. So this, what is this exactly? So one page, I think you see it on the, so it's this one. So this part, you see my hand, right? Okay. So this part here, it's, I call it discipline. And this part here, I call it the profession. I would love that one day I can close the book and they are in the same page, or they actually somehow make some sense. And I can speak, I can make a lecture just about these 2 diagrams, but I won't be quick. And one of these points, it could be this one, that is architecture. This could be anthropology, this could be landscape, this could be sociology, this could be engineering, etc. This could be art. So the discipline, this diagram, actually, it's not true because this diagram is a living thing. So it's always changing, always oppression. They are overlapping with other subjects. They are always in contact, and it's fluid. So if I would do it 300 years ago, it was totally different. If I make it tomorrow, it's going to be totally different. Another interesting thing about this diagram of the discipline is that it's the same in Beirut, in Lisbon, in Tokyo. It's changing, but it's the same. So we can understand each other through this diagram. We can disagree or not disagree in the boundaries of the discipline or the overlaps, but we can communicate. So we can communicate with Chinese, we can communicate with Indians, we can communicate with Americans. The left diagram, so this one, each country has its own rules to the profession. So we make boundaries that it's very much controlled with the demonstrative in democracies, with demonstrative and lobbying, of course, of all the subjects. And there is a kind of a boundary, artificial boundary, to that it's possible that the persons can work. As you know, Portugal has a diagram, Italy is a totally different diagram. For instance, if you don't know, in Portugal, only architects can sign. In Italy, also engineers can sign, so the boundary would be different from this one. But it will be completely different in China, it will be completely different in Lebanon, and it will be different in everywhere. So what I do in my, what is for me, let's say, the motivation to do architecture, and if I want to work on this area is exactly because it's super rich, and I always try to mix these two things, always trying to mix it. Another thing that I think very much because this intention of mixing the profession and the discipline. By the way, Michele, this is very Portuguese, in the sense that Fernando Távora and even Cesar, but more Fernando Távora was really anxious about what is the discipline and what you have to produce. What do you produce? So the works that they did, or at the School of Porto, in that times, not now, you were doing just projects. So they sit each other and they were trying, almost the discipline and the profession was the same. There was no distinction. Anyway, this board that was in our old office means also that I made it a bit more difficult, but I think it's because this anxiety, and this is really not Portuguese. That's for sure not Portuguese, in the sense that I don't have a form or a formula to do projects. What is completely stupid in terms of commercial attitude. So I don't advise this to anyone, and especially to the students, don't do this. But it's actually a lot of fun. But for me, it makes a lot of sense because I'm very, let's say, each project that I make, I always try to find what is the best, and I always try to look to the context, but also to the people. So for me, it's very important that the clients, whatever they are, it makes sense what I'm doing. So I don't arrive to a place with idea or with a formula that I saw somewhere. So it's much more, it's more difficult. You get more energy. Of course, I cannot have a very big ego, but I think the ego trip of the last years, let's say, very last, but there was a period of time that architects were very much considered a kind of egocentric guys. You have to understand that to make a building, you really need to be very confident of yourself. Otherwise, because everybody is against you, your team sometimes is against you, the engineers are against you. So you have to be very egocentric to believe sometimes in things that it's just intuition. So, and to explain to a client that is intuition, maybe it's not, or to the engineering, maybe it's not so interesting. But I think to be humble in this discipline, in this profession, I think it's very important also because you can listen more to the people, and of course you will not control it. I think it's more and more difficult to control everything. So I think we are in a kind of position of change. So the profession is also changing, the discipline is always changing, and the profession is also changing. Our activity is super simple somehow, because what we do is, I think it's very classic somehow. So we have projects like all the studios that builds like all studios and make research like all studios. So it's very basic, let's say. But maybe the only thing that we make, to be very honest, what makes it very serious is in the sense that we really do it. So we really try to do it. So we have, today I'm going to present one building. Actually, it's not going to be Oceanario that Michele spoke. It's a project with a lot of time, and I presented so much time so that today I changed for another one that is Rio, this one. He also won an award, and this is Ozadi that also won an award in Spain. This one award in Brazil. And I also am going to present a big project. This is actually a thing that I'm not very much known, and the office is not very much known for doing it. But actually, when I worked in other offices, I was doing very big, large-scale projects, not so much buildings. So I'm very comfortable, and we have a very good team in Portugal of different disciplines to make master plans, and we won a very, very big project that I'm going to show today, and I'm going to show also this very tiny scale. Actually, two projects of this very tiny scale. One dedicated to Amandio, that I don't know if he's here or not. I hope that he remembers it. And another one that was our last project of the very small scale. And from this part, I'm not going to show anything because it will be super long, but this is the research. We have a new book coming in that is N2, that we will make an exhibition here in November this year. So the first project is the Consulate of Portugal. It's a very easy project in the sense that it's we won the competition in a very basic thing, that was to say that this building is not really protected. It was given by the Brazilians in the immigrants, Portuguese immigrants in Brazil, in Rio. It was, and it's from the beginning of the 20th century, when Brazil was almost coming in, and it's a pastiche, so full of rococos and this kind of stuff. So it's not really interesting. But for a question of, let's say, attention, or cultural attention to the people around, because they think this is a very interesting, not only the Portuguese but also the Brazilian. We actually just made a kind of carpet. So we pushed, the garden was almost going to the mountain, and we made the continuation of the embasement. So the plinto continues on the floor. So this made, let's say, this picture is, it was from the inauguration, the opening. And I think I don't have new pictures, but I'm asking them to make some new, because now in Brazil everything goes very fast. So now it is a huge garden, really exotic and exciting. So the building, as you can see, have some patios to come in the light, and this was a very important tool, because otherwise we could not put the program. But also these patios also make a kind of climatic environment on Brazil. Brazil was, when I went to Brazil and when I started designing this project, I had the idea to make it without any kind of air condition. I passed 3 ministers, 4 Secretary of States, and 6 Director Generals, and 2 consulates. So as you can imagine, in a project like that, I start designing it without air condition and I finish it with air condition. What is a pity, because this would really work without air condition, and it was my main idea, and that's why the reason of the patios and everything of the gardens to work very on that sense. Another thing that we do, like I told you, the building, what I get a bit annoyed is that, and I'm a bit jealous as well, because the beginning of the 20th century, the modernists were designing to the factories. You had also a lot of architects, Geoponti, and not only Geoponti, but a lot of them designing to the big factories, because they were interested on the architects, on the design. Nowadays they are not, and they just push solutions, prefabricated studio, whatever solutions it is. And I feel a lot of times like a lady in the shop choosing things to put together. So it's a thing that I really hate. And so I tried, in Oceanário, we did that. We made a customized facade. In Osaria as well. And in this one we tried, but we tried to do it in a different way, because it was a consulate. We tried to involve the University of Rio, the PUC in Rio, with the constructor, that is Casais, and of course with the minister, otherwise we not possible. And we made a workshop with the students of Rio, and we designed the facade with them. So we had these professors, we had the monitors, and we made a workshop of Reno and Gashoppers. So here you can see the first, they went to the site, they saw the work, the construction. We made a lot of prototypes. This is the first prototype with the help of the builder. And then we arrived to the solution that won the workshop, the students that won the workshop. And then, of course, this part we had developed by ourselves in a professional way. And finally, we managed to make this is the positive. This is actually this is a prototype made here in Portugal, in Sferovit, that I don't know the name in Italian, foam. And this is in a material, a plastic material. And this is the first concrete things on site. So this is starting the construction. I have to say that the construction was very difficult. Still, we had the Portuguese constructor, and they put there on the building side a lot of Portuguese, because it's very difficult to build in Rio. They lost all the knowledge and all the thing. It's very tough to the building sites. So this is the facade and also a kind of filter between what is the outside and the inside. This part is, let's say, the first patio. When you arrive there, it's a public patio, so you have a kind of defined patio with these two palm trees. Actually, I have a very nice story to tell. I always tell this story here. I was remembering that this is the very strange things that happens in Brazil, that these palm trees are imperial palm trees, and they are protected by the state. If you take out one of these palm trees, you can have between 5 and 10 years of jail. Okay, so this was the first thing that they told me when I present this project, because there was a third palm tree exactly when I have my hand here. Okay, she was here, and she was inside our thing. The problem was that the first survey that they gave to me from Brazil, it was wrong. So I discovered it when I was inside, and I saw the foundation in a wrong way. So I asked for a second survey. They made a second survey, and then I changed the drawing. So I had a very good nightmare changing the door to avoid the fall of the third palm tree. But of course, the second survey was again wrong, and they had to cut the palm tree. When we asked for, of course, authorization to the City Hall gave us the authorization, we explained, etc. And then when we were cutting the palm tree, I was in Portugal, and I received a phone call that I never, ever had received a phone call of the Consulate of the Rio, asking me, actually the ambassador, it was not even the Consulate, the ambassador saying me, dear Pedro, what's going on? Because we are in the news, in the national news, and we have a helicopter with military police around the Consulate of Rio. And of course, I entered in kind of panic, and I called the guy, the director of the site, and etc. And the guys told me, well, we have all the authorization. I don't know what's going on. I said, well, when the guys came, the militaries came, showed the papers. And actually, that's what happened. Of course, everything was legal, but they made all this show off just to tell that Portugal took out a palm tree, imperial palm tree. Anyway, it's a strange country. This is the second patio, so where the persons wait for them to enter on the building, and then you have this. I would not consider a patio. It's just a light to when you start the interesting, and then you have a section of patios. This is the waiting part. So here you can see that this roof, internal roof, was like that exactly to the circulation of the wind, natural circulation. The funny thing about this building was when it was constructed, it was super fresh. So it was possible to be here because there was a lot of wind coming in, and you have a very thick cover with the garden. So it was super nice. And it was full of monkeys because we have monkeys all everywhere. And the consulate have problems with the breakfasts outside because the monkeys come and eat the thing. So, but here it was full of, because it was fresh. So they were coming here to see the person's building. It was really nice. This is the waiting room here. Here the air condition, as you can see, was pushed after. And this is one of our conceptual ideas since the beginning, that was this transparency through the patios until the last one. This is the private area of the staff and the consulate staff. Here you can see a bit the old garden. The garden is amazing and fantastic, and goes until the Corcovado. So the process is really, really long. Here you can see it's like going up. This picture, it's also not updated because this is a very strong garden now. This image from the beginning, and that's the final thing. So the second project is this competition that we won. This was a invited competition and we went to this really big office, Portuguese big office. So we are quite proud on it. It's in Portimão. Portimão has an area that is Praia da Rocha, that it's very famous in the 60s and the 70s. Then it had these huge constructions, a bit like Rimini to the Italians, to the guys who knows Spain, to the Costa Azurra. So all these super big buildings. And we were building on this area that was before was sea, and they reclaimed water. So they made a kind of new territory. So it's this territory here. You can see all the building. It's considered, I don't think it's such a bad area, but it's considered very bad. This is a very nice beach, super nice. And this is the river Arada. It is one very important river from the south of Portugal. Small, but very important to this area. And it's still, you can still go up on it. So this is the site right in front of the marina. What is amazing site. And our first approach that actually made us win the competition was to look to the area, the nearest area, and we see that we didn't have much green areas. So this is a planned park, never happened. And we saw here opportunity to make not only a development, but to make an urban park. So actually it was very near the city center that is here, that you can easily arrive to the beach in a very easy way. And we also understood immediately that it could be a kind of necessary way to reinforce this area of along the river. This site, what is as really bad, it's not so much the construction, but is these highways, because they are really highways inside the city. It's from the other times that we thought that everything could be possible with highways and big traffic. So the site is kind of a conclave. It's kind of an island, if you want. So you have these big streets that we cannot change it by the PU. So the urban plan doesn't allow us to change, to touch on that streets. And we have, of course, here it's a cota, so a very big hill that you cannot pass the other side. And here you have the militaries and the cruise station where you go to Madeira by boat. So our idea was to push a park to make something like this that could connect and interact with the rest of the site. And of course, for us was important that when you arrive here, that you have a kind of big plaza, a nice space to be in front of the marina and to consider all these things. And of course, that somehow, and this is let's say the most important, I always say when I present this, that if there is something new here, it's this, that we didn't put cars inside. So we have these, we call it raquettes. So like ping pong, the rackets of ping pong, so that you arrive here and then you just park, you enter and go out. So you don't have cars crossing all these in full obstruction. You have here Alameda that you can cross it, but actually it's closed here. So it's kind of, you can pass it and you cannot pass it. Anyway, this is also two rackets. So you actually, when in the summer you have to do something like this, in the winter you can do something like that. Okay, so this is actually the big thing of that made us actually won the competition, because the client saw that we were not doing much infrastructure. For him is good, but for us as well, because it allowed us to make a very nice park, but also it's good to all the environment. So we won because it's amazing. Also, another thing that we did was that we didn't make these blocks that it's very typical, because the blocks made kind of interior space and we didn't want that. In this case, I think everything would be more flexible. And then we, of course, arrived at a solution like this, and we were not so happy, and we kind of made these strange shapes. Why we were not so happy on this? Because actually, when you have kind of rectangular shape, you have always a north side, and we wanted, or a empena. Empena, it's a blind thing. So we tried to amplify as maximum of sun and also views. So as much less possible the thing to the north. these some sketches on this solution, and here the implementation, or when we start making these shapes into the site. So here, more defined plan. This is already the defined plan. This is the competition plan, but I'm super happy because we made a very, very fast project. This needs of estudo de impacto ambiental. It means environmental study impact. That is in Portugal very hard to do, and we pass it in like 9 months, what is a kind of record to Portugal. During the pandemics, we are now delivering the execution plan of this project. This is a sketch. Well, this kind of sketches, it's made after, it's not a research, but the clients ask us because they know that the people, we had, of course, to make a public participation. How do you say it? It's where everybody comes and all the people comes and see the project. So they prefer this kind of illustrations than the renderings that we also had to do. This is a very commercial rendering to the client. The client is a very, very big bank in Portugal, and he has this land that wants to develop. I'm very curious about this, how he's going to end. I'm a bit skeptical. I've been working, when I was working in Holland, I worked in very large projects, but I know that this, you cannot control it. It's a kind of, it's not like architecture, and that's somehow also why I like it. But I'm curious because there is a very good, everybody likes the project, the people likes the project, the CTO likes the project, the guys of the environment likes the project. We have very good intentions and see how it finish. Maybe in a few years I can show this again and see how it really happened, or what happened. Then this small scale project. This is a project that also won a prize here in Italy. That's called Shaping Surface Competitions by Cliff. And this is a nice project. We made it. We finished exactly before when we locked down. I think in May, so in March, something like that. This was an old gallery. The space. It was. This is the wall of the gallery, the last wall of the gallery, and this is without the wall of the gallery. Because the first thing that we thought when we arrived to this place, as you see, this was the gallery. We have here a wall, so we just destroyed everything, and we made this very, very long. This was just storage here. So we had this idea of making them a concept like a snake. So this concept of snake could be and could do. This is something that we do a lot of times in our office, that we somehow we have also to understand a bit, and this is important to the students, what are the needs of the clients. A lot of times especially on these projects, I think as my client. So I think if I had the money and if I had this, what shall I do? It's like if I was a partner of him. I think this is very important because, for example, this client wanted to do 2 shops, one for showroom, another one for the lab, for the shop of design, because he has these 2 brands, let's say. And I told him, why don't you do it in the same? It's much cheaper. You make it in the same. And he asked me, but is it possible? I mean, of course it's possible if you spare money. It was not very smart because I just made 1 project instead of 2, but the client was super happy. And as you can see, being honest and thinking as the client, I think it's very important because then he becomes very satisfied. So we had this idea that the snake would be the shop and the showroom would be something else. So we made a lot of tryouts because he had also meeting rooms that he wanted to have because the client of the showrooms comes and they have to meet. He had also the reception. He had a lot of small programs. He wanted to do a kind of small auditorium. So we made several tryouts, and then in the end, we arrived to this more orthogonal idea of that this snake, when it comes, arrives and makes the programs, the different programs. Here it's the first models, and you can see here the program. The gallery was that this window, it's very, very narrow. So we thought, well, why not just make a gallery and you put there a piece of art? This is the area of the showroom with all the materials because the guy sells products of wood. Then this is the shop, all the area of the shop. This is the reception with where you can buy and this is the person that attends you. The shop meeting, the meeting room, the lounge, and the famous auditorium that he wanted, because the auditorium is also to the not only exterior persons that comes here, partnerships that he has of other projects, but also to himself make from workshops to the people that he has and other persons. So it became a kind of important thing. So also another thing that we made this false floors ceiling, sorry, because we wanted that these areas became in a kind of different speciality. Okay, so the shape became very interesting. When I said in the beginning that I'm not interested in shape, it's not that I don't like it. So shape is pleasure. It's very nice. I love to make shapes. It's just that not the reason why I start the projects. But of course, we always like shape, and I think architecture is about shape, of course. And we have to, in the end, to make, it's our profession, we have to make a shape in the end. And we had this, this was a very pleasurable project to make, to exercise these ideas of shape. This is a 3D, we make a lot of 3D, this is the 3D, and this is the thing built. So here you can see the old showroom. On the back, you see the small auditorium, and this is the snake with to put all the projects. This is the auditorium that has this. There was this area because it was the garage of the building. So we had this thing, and then we made the installation of light there, what was also nice. So I'm going to show a project that was, I was not intending, but because Amandio, that is now theater director, was on this project. It was very, very long time ago. This was a scenography that I made to Mónica Cali, A Loucura da Normalidade. That was for the festival, theater festival of Almada. Actually, it was a very simple project in the sense that she wanted to plan things. She had a kind of land that they gave to them to make the outside theater. And then what we did instead of planting, because she wanted that we put a lot of things that to hide the actors, what we did was we made a hole. It's very easy. So we just excave. We wanted to excave 3-4 meters. Of course, we excave less because otherwise it would be impossible, would be not secure. But the idea was that the scenography, the real scenography, would be the buildings on the back. So we deal with this thing of the earth, and that time I was very excited. I'm still very excited about the earth. It's another story, but it's I like a lot the earth, especially as a material to build. I think it's super interesting. And there was here this thing of the, I don't know if Amandio is seeing it, but this is Amandio. My students for sure are laughing. He's a bit older now, right? It was 20 years ago, guys. And you see here that this actually was the real scenography of the show. This was during the night. And this was the show where the people, the beginning was the building, the people could only be inside, but there was so many people, then the people became also on top, what was of course not totally secure, but anyway, I think in that times was less laws about security, so it was possible. And this was a very funky theater and very nice, very good times. I hope Amandio is seeing and having good memories. So here you can see very well that this was actually the scenography. I did just a place that the people can be, not the scenography itself. This is a very nice thing because this was the place where we did the scenography, and this is the theater of Almada. So actually made the kind of the first, it's a very symbolical thing, but after I think 2 or 3 months, they became the foundations of this building from Graça Dia, that is the Teatro of Almada. So now I'm gonna explain a bit what Michele said about the communication and these things. So as you can saw, I make a lot of projects of research, especially books and speculations about the city, etc. And I always had this anxiety to have another space, another dimension, not only the architecture that I show you, the dimension more, let's say, more that could equilibrate a bit the projects that I have with the research that I always aim to do. So we were in this very small office. You see here my black wall on the small office. It was very, very small, but we were very, very happy there. But anyway, it was like we were in the third floor in Baix, in the city center. It was super nice, but we didn't have this possibility to be next to the people. And we found out this space was amazing because it's in the corner, in a place that it's very cheap in Lisbon, in Anjos, still very cheap. And we bought it. It was an old bakery. So here you have the bakery. Here you have two amazing ovens, industrial ovens, gigantic ovens, and this was all the factory. So we did the project, and of course we, as always, this is Alessia, is here helping the guys to build. As always, we have this attention to the projects that sometimes we even want to build it or do some parts of it. It was a very nice project, and this year you can see what we aimed, that the studio became, there is a part, this bakery part became, like, say, the head, the open head to the city. We call it Antecâmara, so the camera before Campos Costa Architecture. So our interests, everything that we wanted was in this area open to the thing. So this was the oven, like it was before. Now it's like that. After the works, this was like that, the beginning of the factory. Now it's like this. This is where the ping pong table is. And this is the gallery. This was the bakery, of course. And this is the gallery like it is now. So we had another thing that was the radio. So we had this window that was bigger, and we had the idea to make a radio that the persons pass and see persons speaking about architecture. So actually the radio became a kind of success that I was not, we changed in 1 year ago, August last year, and the radio became an amazing success. So we have like 40,000 clicks on the radio. We have a lot of followers, and we were invited to the CCB, to the Garagem Sul, that is a big museum in Portugal, to make from February to September radio residence there. So we are quite excited about it and also surprised because it was super, hyper fast. So this is the site. If you write radio and camera, it will appear this. This is the radio and the gallery. So they are kind of twins because they communicate with each other. Sometimes the things that are in the gallery goes to the radio, the things that are in the radio goes to the gallery. So this is the programs that you can, they are always in podcasts, so you can also listen to them. You can click here and see, listen what it is. We don't still have a lot of programmation, but we are growing quite fast. This is the gallery. This is what it is exactly now. This is what we're going to do next Friday, if someone wants to appear. That is the pop-up bookstore with 17 book editors of architectures. That's architecture, and that's this is actually, it was a program of the radio that finished, and now it becomes a gallery exhibition. So the window, as you can see, we have these things of the Instagram, etc. But what for me it's important in these images was one of the artists that was here used also the window to make a kind of performance to communicate with the outside. That I think actually is what architects, at least what I actually want and aim to always communicate with outside. This is the first exhibition that we made, and we opened it with the project that we were finishing it in the time. That is Lisbon Vertigo. It's what Michele told about the speculation. I'm not going to be, because otherwise I would make a lecture just about it, but it's a project that speculates about high-rise buildings in Lisbon, because there is a kind of impossibility to make them. It's almost impossible, but not by law. It's very much because the cultural. So this was a cultural attitude, very much without less words, but a lot of images. It was very successful as well. A lot of persons, I was invited to describe it in several places. And it's funny because there is an association on this neighborhood against high-rise buildings, and I invite them to come and see the exhibition. They said, very nice images. And they were confused. They said, but you like the high-rise? No, we don't like, but we like the images. So this is a kind of provocation, the type of provocation that I like to do. Of course, I made it in a very exaggerated way that cannot be possible. But because of this, for example, the university made 1 year just about high rising, and the students could, and I was there helping to, they could make in a serious way, looking to places where you could build high rise buildings. The second exhibition of this year was exhibition of Daniel Magnan. He's a photographer. He makes very, very nice photos. So but because I think a bit because of the radio, he made the kind of disc. So his layout was a disc. So this was the side A, and this was the side B. So the side B was black and white. The side A was color. It was very beautiful things. The third exhibition was not really by mistake, but I was also involved on it because I had these artists, Rui Soares Costa, that would make an exhibition there. He's doing a very beautiful thing, that he's putting these panels of steel inside the Tejo, and going up, and the tide of the water is creating the artwork. So it's very beautiful. It was a very powerful exhibition. I made the architecture, and we invite João Galante to make the sound. So this experience, it was really experience. You could enter and feel all the thing. The idea was, of course, João Galante is a performer also, not only of music. The idea is this project continues and makes also people inside and living this house of water. What is now here, it's video art dança. Pela Nossa Pele, it's about the earth, and about, I think it's also connected with the architecture somehow. I will try that in this exhibition to have more and more of this kind of projects, to be more performative projects, because I think it's somehow there is in Portugal galleries on architectural office, but normally they put mainly or visual arts or photography. So I want to try to put more performance and see how it goes. This was very successful. It was very nice here. It's still here. If you pop here, it's interesting. So in February 2002, we have this. I don't know if it's going to be this layout, but we definitely will be in CCB in Garagem Sul. So you are all welcome to come to Lisbon and visit us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pedro. We look forward to meeting you in Lisbon for this exhibition. Thank you for sharing with us your experiences, both in terms of projects, both in terms of communication and other activities. I think it was challenging, fascinating, and very promising for students. Okay, as usual, we have some 15-20 minutes for discussing some points. I ask, I don't know if Sarah wants to say. Sarah, you have changed the background? Or some colleagues want to open the discussion? Otherwise, I have two questions. I'm interested to discuss. Karim, okay, you can start.
I can say something.
Yeah, Karim. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. It was very heartwarming, and I could feel how the playfulness expresses itself through architecture and through the constraints of what I would define as the architectural combat. Like even when the topographer is doing a mistake in Brazil, already you can feel that really architecture always is this mind, this field of minds, and you have always to move around all the obstacles. Could you elaborate a bit on the geographical specificity of where you come from, Portugal, and how that affected your practice both conceptually and materially? And also, between parentheses, I would like to tell you that I'm coming to Lisbon in November, beginning of November. So I would like to meet you in person if you are available.
You are very much welcome, Karin. But I think you made the question a bit like mine. Huh? No, but it's true that there is a kind of, I mean, we are a kind of island. I work a lot with it. I can do a lecture just about Portuguese identity. I work a lot about identity, and I like very much the poets and the philosophers that speak about it. So it's hard to start because I want to make it short, otherwise I make a lecture of it. But Portuguese is island. Okay, you have to first understand that it was island because two things. One is because we had the Spanish in one side and the ocean in the other. So the ocean was just navigable in the 16th century, and the Spanish, during all the centuries, they tried to conquer us. And even if they were not trying to conquer us, we were afraid of them. Okay, because the idea of Portuguese is always being afraid of Spanish. We have the same written language, and if we speak, no one can understand. Any Spanish can understand us. It's impossible that they can understand. So it's a very strange country because we are built on this fantasy. It's a strange island, let's say, that it's not island. So if you understand first this, then you have to. The second thing that you have to understand is that our philosophy comes from our poets. So I tell a lot of times to my students poetries. I also read a lot of poetry, but the poetry is our philosophy. We don't have real philosophers. We have, Agostinho de Silva and José Gil, that they are quite good, but our main, the important stuff, it's poetries that you can understand. For example, the Day of Portugal, that, for example, in France is the day of the independence, the revolution, etc. In Portugal is Dia de Camões. Camões was the biggest poet that we have. So our day, the national day, is of a poet. And this is important on our minds, okay? So we are always very small. We always consider ourselves small, small country, small everything. We are always a bit quiet, and well, only Mourinho speaks a lot. I don't know, likes football, but Mourinho is a strange Portuguese. It was when he appeared for us, we were all in shock because Portuguese always defend, never attacks, and Mourinho was always attacking. We were a bit confused. What? And this is, let's say, I'm trying to give you a kind of what is actually Portugal somehow in this concept. So of course, I travel a lot. So I lived 4 years in Holland where I met Matteo Poli. I don't know if he left, but that's why I met Matteo Poli, and also my wife, that she is Italian. And I lived in Italy for a lot of time. So of course I have a mixed, I have all these mixed things. I have a lot of conscience of what is Portuguese mentality and Portuguese poetry, let's say. But I also realize that I have a lot of intersections, because that's why I was telling Michele as a provocation in the beginning, I don't know what is Portuguese architecture. I know a lot of things or that I actually understand in architects, where I study, like in Porto, that they were very interested in ideas and not in forms. Okay, Porto School is not really a formalistic school, even if the persons who go there thinks that it is. But this was my experience. So, of course, the result, what I do is the result of all my, let's say, definitely my ideas and also the interactions between me and others that are also not national, because nowadays we are in a kind of diluted world. So my identity is, of course, multi thing. It's not I'm very, very, very different from Cisa and very, very different from Sotomora, because we had different lives, okay? And because we are different people, for sure.
Pedro, there is a word you have talked about your one of your between project and performance is scenography. I'm curious to understand how is it possible to apply scenography in, for example, in art transformation as the one I think we are working about for Piacenza, in a way large scale project. I mean, imagine it to last for times and times. Maybe there was also this question about times when you have talked about the first project, this idea of nature reconquering the covering the roof of this building. But the question of scenography and the question of also temporary uses of spaces. There is some authors working about the idea that is possible through temporary uses to transform strongly, significantly pieces of cities, pieces of landscapes. What is your experience, your idea about it?
Well, I don't do much scenographies. I did actually like I could present that one, but I picked this one because it was a menu in. But I did 1 month ago one scenography in the National Theatre for Borralho and Galante. It was a mirror. It was a very beautiful thing. But I think the scenography is always very connected with the director. Okay, so I don't know what is the idea. At least for me, it's always it's like I'm glued with the theater director, because what he wants to do with the text and what he wants actually to express, I'm just there to help, to use other teams to do. At least was always my experience on scenography. I'm not let's say one of my first things. I like very much to do scenographies because it's a thing that I like very much, that is theater, but I don't do much. Anyway, applied to the city, I think the word scenography, I see it as with a kind of bad interpretation, let's say. I prefer the idea of temporary uses. That is, of course, the thing that definitely will change a lot our cities now. The post-COVID, now going into the workshop, what I try to do, if you want to know, Michele, you will see in the deadline. I don't know if I manage it. I thought to make a crazy thing that was to, if I'm not there, because I always go to the places and I'm always connected with the places to understand what can I do there. Why can't I do a kind of fiction? Why can I not try to imagine things? And probably that's how I asked the help of Amandio, that is a theater director, to try to create narratives or to create things that would help to imagine things that we are not there. I mean, we're going to Google and then that's it. I mean, and everybody sees it, but it's different. We cannot smell it, we cannot touch it. We don't even see the dimension, the three-dimensional thing. That for me, it's architecture. Actually, I have to tell this, I think Karin will like to listen, is that for me, architecture is 3D. It's not to this thing of the photography of architecture and blah, blah, for me doesn't exist. Well, the only thing that exists, I had this experience with a lot of buildings, is that you go there and you see, you have to experience. It's a thing that you have to go inside. It's three-dimensional. If you don't have this three-dimensionality, it's not architecture. This is very classical, Michele. And it's probably very Portuguese. I don't know. But anyway, the temporary things, I think it's some of our students we spoke about it, and I think they are working on that. So my strategy for the workshop was very much through fiction or through storytelling, arrive there somehow. I don't know how much we failed, because I don't think we will be successful, but we somehow failed, and I hope that we fail better, as Amanda always say, because I think it was a phrase from Peter Brook, always say, we fail better, fail better. And I think it's also important to accept this on a workshop, that because we are always pressured to present things well and beautiful and fantastic and solutions, answers, but in such a short time and with these constraints that we are online, I think we have to accept the failure. And if the students accept the failure, I think we are more prepared to fail better and go on and go on. I don't know if I answered your question, but at least I spoke a bit what I think about the workshop.
You did. I think this question of, well, temporary uses is strongly related with storytelling, with creating an experience, also maybe it's a fake one, okay, also if you are not in the site. And it's something that, well, contemporary societies have to face with. I don't know if it's good or not, but I think it's a dimension we need to work with. Okay, I'm opening. Sarah,
may I ask? Well, I'm really interested, since my field is more landscape architecture. I'm really interested in understanding in your approach which role you assign to nature. How do you imagine the relation between your design proposal and nature? It's something very with a strong combination. It's something where you establish a contrast, you do whatever you need according to the different conditions, and within this this idea of the narrative, somehow in which way it relates with the fact that often we deal with something which is completely unexpected. So how do you deal with these two questions? On one side nature, and on the other the role of the unexpected in our experience of the spaces?
The first answer, I work with the landscape architects. In Portugal, we have this tradition to work with them. So they have a different formation. I work a lot with João Nunes, with the Pro App. So we lost 3 days ago a project that João was super excited about it. I was a bit skeptical, but I engaged with him because we were doing a known object building. Okay, so we lost. I think it was clear, my answer, no? So I'm very much interested on and taking out. I don't like when I can, of course, in the context there. Of course, it's possible to do it, etc. I prefer to have a building that disappears, or that you don't see the barrier, or you don't see the wall that divides the interior and exterior. We cannot live outside. That's true. It's a fact, even if we are also nature. But I always aiming that somehow we have this intertwining thing. Also, another thing is that when I think I already told that, but I told in the lecture in our studio that after the COVID, the second day of being locked out, a journalist made me an interview, and she asked me what's going to change after COVID. And said, come on, it's how can I know? But everybody was shocked, and so it's a good opportunity to change. And I said, yes, it's a good opportunity to project our dreams. It's very important to project what we want for the world. Fantastic. So I told her more density and more green, and she was a bit shocked. She said, but that's the opposite. I said, no, it's the same, because if you have more density, and of course we can have a long discussion about what is density, how we're going to design density, and first of all, what is density? Okay, we manage to have more nature inside. the cities and green spaces, let's say, because we are also nature. Sarah, don't forget, we are nature. We are not machines for until now. So this relation for me, it's very important, and I don't manage to do it. So I also like to build in, I love to build in earth constructions. I met Martin Rausch 12, 15 years ago. I went to his house because I don't know if you know Martin Rausch. He's an Austrian guy who makes beautiful architecture in rammed earth. And I never manage it. So now I have a project that I hopefully would be my first project in rammed earth. And I try always to somehow, for example, this Rio project, I tried also to make him totally without air conditioning. It's possible. If you go there, the building 60, the modernists in the 60s and the 40s and the 30s, they were doing buildings fantastic, amazing, just with ventilation, cross ventilation. So I was fascinated with that, and I thought, well, why can't I do it as well? But it's not possible because you have a lot of pressures and constraints. About the imprevisibility in architecture, I think it's in all professions, but architects have to have, let's say, a more capacity. And that's what I was telling in the beginning of we have a kind of idea of control, okay? So we need to control everything to be able to produce something. But I think we have to learn to not control it. We are taught as controllers. We are taught in schools, and it's our discipline that obliges us to control everything because we coordinate, we make the synthesis of everything. So it's normal that we have to control. Otherwise, what are you doing there if you don't control it? But it's strange to say that, but I think we have to lose a bit the control. It's a bit like, I don't know if you make any sport, but it's a bit like surfing. You have to get the opportunity, wait a bit, and then improvise a lot. It's difficult. This thing of the narratives and what we did with the students with the help of Amandio is also to tell them that one day it's like this, another day it's like that. If I had probably physically, I did this once, that it's like 2 in 2 days we change everything. I say now the program is different. Now it's there was an earthquake. Now so this is very stressing for the students, but in the end they are very happy. I made this one or twice. They're super happy because they manage it. They see that we have a diversity and we can change, and maybe it's better, maybe it's more beautiful, less beautiful. It's not really important. What I think the students should learn is that beauty in the 19th century was something, in 20th centuries was another, and in 21, 22, I mean, it's always change. And beauty for us, it's more important that you, more than the beauty that I don't really know what is it, and I'm not really interested, it's that you can reflect or you can be in your project so that what you are doing makes sense for you, so that you create your own narrative. And it's, for me, at least what is for me is important. Of course, I have this, let's say, help, that it's not a help in terms of commercial way, that I don't have a shape or a vocabularium as other architects have, and this helps them a lot, because once you have a kind of formula and image, the clients comes to buy them as these, let's say, artists or paintings or whatever. But this is a condition that I cannot be another person than myself. So I could try, but it's difficult to make one formula in my way of seeing the world.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I see Juan Carlos, then some open camera. I don't know if Matteo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Juan Carlos. Yeah.
Thank you, Michele. Thank you very much, Pedro. Obrigado for your presentation. At the beginning, you spoke about discipline and profession. My question is a bit of provocation. Is architecture for you a discipline or a profession? And what is the impact or architecture education of one or the other approach?
It's a very good question, Juan. You are Spanish, right?
Colombiano.
Colombiano, okay. No, because if you were Spanish, you knew
Francés.
Francés, okay. The thing, it's a very good question in the sense that one of the things that I learned in school, even School of Porto, was very much one thing together. So there was not really theory about the discipline. It was one thing. It was they create this vision that came from the 30s, from Carlos Ramos, that you had one discipline and one profession altogether. So the theory and what you were doing and everything makes sense. It was a kind of a dream world. It's as you can imagine, if you don't put a lot of strange things around it, it looks like a fantasy. It's almost impossible that happens. But let's say this was my first education, okay? And then when I came to the profession, first in Holland and then in Italy and then in Portugal, I understood that it was not like that. So the profession was always more far, and the discipline was always more academic. And I see always I'm being invited to different universities, so I have this capacity to see different ways of looking to things, but still they are far from the profession. I don't know if they have to be closed, but I always aimed somehow that this thing that I had in the beginning when I started, that somehow the things, at least I make the pressure, even if I can't manage it, even if I would be never able to make these two things. I'm always trying to do these things. Another thing is that the discipline is very much into the research area. Okay, so I do a lot of research. I didn't show here, but I have several books. I'm with the gallery. I will push even more the thing. I'm doing now a speculation about N2. That is a road in Portugal. I have 2 books about the territorium that I'm going to make the 3rd one. So this research, and that also involves thinking about the discipline. Okay, so for me should be the 2, but of course I have to be honest saying that 90% what I do, 90 because it's where I eat. So what I do is profession and not discipline. Okay.
Yes, but the discipline is have a part of research and theoretical apport and practice, and the practice is the profession. I don't know.
In the ideal world, yes. No, but as a nice narrative, it's possible. But it's difficult in the sense that it's not connected. What I'm saying is that you never connect the things. Okay? But we can, if you want.
El desafío.
É um desafio, yes. There is few architects that shows it as possible. Okay, we could speak about Remkulis, we could speak about Zumthor. They look like that they somehow could match the things. I didn't yet match the things. I'm always trying to match them. Okay, but they look like they match. I have a lot of doubts knowing a bit the practice of Rem and knowing a bit the practice of Rem of Zumthor. I doubt also if it's really true the match or if it's a kind of involucrum about everything. There is this Paraguayan that I love very much. What's his name? I forgot the name. He's doing
Solano Benitez.
Solano Benitez, so okay. He's a guy that probably is matching much more than Zumthor and Remkulis, for example. Yeah, and he's matching more. Okay, that's true. For example, there is few guys that probably can match it more. I don't match so much. I try, but I can't.
We try. Thank you, Pedro.
Lina.
Yeah, can I do a
Yeah.
question? Okay, thank you. I really appreciate this lecture, so thank you for your nice presentation. As you are here, I would like to take advantage to ask you something more about your involvement in the Biennale of Venice of 2014. We were talking about Remcolas, and also I really like your this kind of all-inclusive dimension of your work. Now, yesterday I was talking about the fact that as architects we have many partitions in our brains, you know, and so this this involvement in activities of communication of you know, event organization and curating is very interesting. I feel it's very interesting. So can you talk a little bit more about this involvement?
I can. It's without. I think if actually the responsible for accepting this thing of being curator of the Biennale of Venice is Alessia. She's my wife and she's Italian. So I said first no, and then I arrived home and said I said no to the Biennale, and she said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "Okay, do I have to consider?" Yes, of course you have to consider it. Why I said no, Lina? I said no because first of all, I'm not a curator, okay? It's like, I know that a lot of architects do curations, and I do a lot, as you saw, I have this gallery, I make radio, I like very much to do this in a free way. So no one is telling me, be careful, you cannot, we call our bookstore Puta da Leitura. So it's, you know, what is the name of Puta da Loucura? It's a sentence in Portuguese. It's saying that you are completely crazy. So we change the word and we say Puta da Leitura. So I like this freedom of acting, and that's where I feel well. Biennale of Venice is for Portugal, because we are a very small country, as I explained you before. It's like the moment of the lifetime of some architects, okay? And all the biennales until me, there was 2 architects going, always, Cisa, Sotomora, friends of Cisa, friends of Sotomora, Cisa, Sotomora, friends of Cisa, friends of Sotomora. So when they invite me, I knew that I could never manage that, because I would not ever invite. It's not that I don't like the work of Cisa Sotomora. Okay? I love the work of Cisa. I'm always telling the work of Cisa to my students, and I have a lot of influences of him. Okay, it's not about that. It's just about my interpretation about what is a Biennale of Venice, the opportunity of the Biennale of Venice, and also a political attitude of Portuguese pavilion. So you should give the opportunity to other architects, to other tendencies, to other looks, to other perspectives, etc., etc. So why I said no the first time was that we were in a very bad condition in Portugal. It was 2014. We were in the middle of the Troika. Everybody was really aggressive, and with reason, because it was absolutely crazy times. It's not that now it's less crazy, but well, it's much less crazy. It was very, very bad, the government, and very bad way of approaching the things. And this was one of the reasons. Another reason was that I knew that this Biennale would be very political. There was Remcolas, and for sure he would not do a normal stuff. I said yes the second because Alessia told me that these kind of opportunities in your lifetime comes once, and that it's very important to also to grow up somehow and to develop. It's a challenge as well. So she told me, if you are always complaining about that the Portuguese don't never open, now you open. And I did it. The problem is that, of course, there is a Pedro before the Biennale of Venice. That's the problem of these things. And the Pedro after the Biennale, what is not so bad in, let's say, in conceptual terms, in growing terms. But it was a shock for me in different ways. And what I did actually was to make, I don't know if everybody knows, but I didn't present it here because I'm also a bit fed up of presenting the project. But we did a newspaper that were giving news to the Biennale. We made 3 numbers, and I invite 9 teams in different parts of the country doing projects during the Biennale, and with the city halls, etc. And they were giving this information to the Biennale. It was amazing because it's a amazing register of what we were doing. We were actually mapping this newspaper, a kind of mapping of what we were passing on that period. And of course, I risk a lot. For example, to have, if you have the idea, at least 50% of the studies that I invite disappeared. Okay, so why curators? Why we had always Cisa Sotomare? Because they don't risk much. But I don't think that you have to risk. Otherwise, if you don't risk, you don't give the opportunities to the younger guys to come in. Once I made an interview to Cisa, 1998, 99, I think, for an Italian magazine, Dars, a magazine of art. And I made him an interview, and in a certain moment, you told me, Pedro, you know, thank you for the interview, but you shouldn't interview me. And I said, why not? Because you should interview the young guys. I'm just here because the guys when I was young, the guys had guts and courage to interview me and to publish me. Otherwise, I would be not here. It would be impossible. And I never forgot this thing. He was really serious. He was not joking. And of course, he made the interview anyway. But I think the important thing about the kind of Biennale for us, for Portugal, is to open up and to try to put another things. There is, I think, still a big exhibition about all the Biennales that we did since 2000. It was the first one with Pedro, and there you can see all them together, and it's nice. I was very happy to see all together because I really understood that I made a kind of shift on the representations. So in the end, as always, the Italians were right, and Alessia, she was right, saying that if you want to open the door, you have to do it.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I guess we can close. It was also tonight was a very interesting, deep, and challenging lecture. And so we have finished through this series of our LOL workshop lectures. Tomorrow it's workshop day, and we have instead the last lecture with UN Habitat members at 6 p.m. So we push all the students and the colleagues to be present for that. That is the last event of our series of lectures. So we thank Pedro very much. We thank all the colleagues, and the appointment is for tomorrow. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.